5 minutes, people. God bless you. If you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward just a few minutes. Otherwise, hey, let's have a good show. All right. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Copyright-free Clegg book. May you live in interesting times. Edward Keithley doesn't like that music. All right, I can take a hint. I can take a hint. Copyright-free Clegg book. Copyright-free. Why? Why? I'll tell you what, you need to be philosophical, don't you? Just go. But I wasn't grown up in mind. Go, woman. But I wasn't grown up in mind. Oh, blimey. But I wasn't grown up in mind. Get the men in white coats. Crying out loud, deliver us from evil. Absolutely neurotic. What a mad old bin. I'll tell you what. Let's face it. I mean, this is our Prime Minister. Can you believe it? Do you feel sufficiently humiliated? Let's face it. I mean, this is our Prime... Oh, that's very kind of you, YouTube, to let us to go on tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, we don't care about British Steel. We don't care. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. Yeah, yeah. We don't care about the fish. No, no. Look, I'll tell you what. There's my wallet. Open it up and take what you like. You know what I mean? There's the house keys. Yeah, yeah. Give them back when you're taking the furniture. That's fine. It's all right. No worries. Be happy. I wish Peter Cook was still alive. I wish Peter Cook was still alive. Oh, blimey. Do. She's mad. Do. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's it. Oh, we're supposed to be there. We're supposed to be there. Hold it. Here we go. Let's do it. She is a complete mad woman. Hey folks! Good evening, good people. Welcome to... Oh, you know what. Holding democracy to bollocks. It's not a regular show today. Can't be bothered. It's kind of like the eye and the needle in the middle of the storm, you know. That's what it is. As mad as a box of frogs. It is time to section the Prime Minister. Viscounts and Davids. Our Rodders is on about now. I better give him a shout, actually. Get him on. Oh, we're going to have a laugh. Maybe we'll have a sing-song. I don't know. Probably cry. No, there's nothing to talk about. Join in. Hold it. Yeah, join in. Please support the show. PayPal.me/Brexit. Thank you. Oh, look, that's his lordship. Hold on. Oh, here we go. I better take that. Rodders.
Ahoy there, Ollie.
Good evening, sir. Yeah. Share the show, please. All that. Let folks know we're crying. Oh, blimey. Yeah, it's true. That's the old Glasnost bloke. Good evening, people. It's kind of dressed down Thursday today. It's a peculiar time. We shouldn't have had to have gone voting today, Rodri? We shouldn't have had to have gone voting today.
I rather enjoyed
it. What part of it? It's surreal. It is surreal. No?
Well, it could have been quite surreal for me. I came very close to committing a terrible act of electoral fraud.
Go on, tell us about that without incriminating yourself, maybe.
Well, my brother-in-law is registered to vote in two addresses, one of which is our address here.
Oh, so no, we're going to get a call in a minute.
We received our ballot thing, and we received my brother-in-law's also, who actually had voted this morning in his house in the country. So I thought, hang on a sec, I need to walk into a pub in Chelsea, just give a £10 note around and say demonstrate you're a Brexiteer, and I'll give you 10 quid. And then I was going to drag them to the polling booth in Eaton Square and get them to double vote on my brother-in-law's behalf. My family were quite good at rotten boroughs in the west of Wales, and I thought, well, let's just continue a family tradition.
Oh, blimey. Okay. So how many tenors did you give up?
Well, in Chelsea, I hate to say, there are not that many Brexiteers. Highly paid, hedge fund managers who would prefer to stay in the EU.
It's truth. I'll tell you what, you've been done like a kipper, like what they says down in Chelsea.
Well, I've got to say that would really be great. Going back to HMP Wandsworth, it's like, my lord, what are you doing here again? I voted twice in the Brexit election.
What? Oh, okay, all right, okay. I don't know that we should be talking about that. But you know what? I mean, there is no law anymore, is there? There is no law. We have a government that makes it up as they go along. They've got Burko. It's just crazy. What went wrong? What went wrong? We never really had democracy, though, did we? I mean, that was a myth. I mean, old Plato's deal was we never had any of that. That's probably the best way. Just, get people to kind of give a rough idea of who they like. I don't know, people from doctors and people that have actually really done something useful, and then pick straws and kick them out, fixed terms. That would be a nice sort of system, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Well, the Americans have that sort of thing with their presidential system, and I think it ought to be applied to their Senate as well.
Yeah, that's right.
What I find extraordinary in America, of course, is that you get to vote for judges. Judges get elected as opposed to sort of being appointed for life, where they're meant to be sort of independent of minds, and they act under their own discretion. If you're a judge in quite a few states, you pander to popular appeal, which is not exactly discretionary justice.
No.
As I discovered in Westminster Magistrates Court at the hand of Emma Arbuthnot. But there we go.
Maybe we'll come on to that. You've just taken a trip over. You've been over in South Africa way, eating, I don't know, green mamba and crocodile pate. What do they do? Tinned white man? Do they do that now?
Well, not just yet. I think that's not far below the surface. There is in downtown Johannesburg. It's the first time I've been there. People are overly polite to each other, in the same way that people can be overly polite at the beginning of a boxing match. The supporters are saying, "Oh, after me," and blah blah blah. But under it, it's just a tinge, a thin veneer of civility before you pull out a gun and shoot or stab someone. I mean, we were driving between I don't know where the hell, unpronounceable places, and there were signs on the road saying, "Police sign, you are in a hijack area, don't slow down and stop."
Blimey.
And I thought that's incredible. I fancy doing the same in Britain in some places.
Well, I don't know. Oh, we're getting there, aren't we? We're getting there with the moped gangs and all that, it seems to me.
Well, I put a slightly different sign up, put it up in Whitehall. Voters, don't bother driving down here because you won't make a difference, and we want to ignore you.
No. Oh, dear. Let's have a look and see what's going on in the world of Fake Stream, just for the hell of it. I mean, this isn't a regular show today. This is kind of like, what is it? What do they call it? Is this classed as purder now, Rodri?
How do you mean?
Purder is when you're not allowed to. Well, I mean, we can on a show like this, I guess, within reason and try to be fair. But purder is when, for example, with the referendum, you got off sort of post campaign. The campaign kind of stopped. What was it? A week before, or maybe was it a fortnight before? A week before the actual. Before we went to the polls, and basically wasted our time apparently. And in that period of time, there's not supposed to be any electioneering, and it all kind of goes quiet. The media is not supposed to report in the same way. Of course, they still did. I mean, Project Fear carried on. The PM broke purder. Cameron broke purder, surely. I don't know whether that applies to any old election. I don't know the deal. If anybody wants to call in and let us know on that, then I suppose it'd be quite interesting. Then again, who gives a stuff? But it's kind of like this is the downtime, isn't it, between people going to the polls and us getting the results. So that's what on Monday it's going to be. So I don't know. I suppose they're going to be trying to rig the ballot as much as they possibly can over the next few days.
But why have we got to wait till midnight on Sunday to get the result? The general election result, like the referendum result, was the following day, stroke within 30 hours at the latest. Why
their
is it taking
reasoning
1 to 3 days?
Well, their reasoning would be because they haven't gone to the polls in the rest of Europe yet. I think it's today. It's just the UK and the Netherlands have gone, isn't it? And the rest are kind of on the way. That starts tomorrow, and I suppose their logic. I'm being generous. Would be that you can't kind of influence the result elsewhere in Europe. No, in EU-rope rather. No,
are we talking about the expat postal vote people?
No. That's a different. That's a different thing again. And
I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's the different nation states because the polls are all open. It's a staggered process, isn't it? It's seems very strange to me that all the nations in Europe don't go to the polls on the same day. But on the other hand, maybe there are sensible reasons for it, economic reasons. I don't know. If you could trust them.
Well, I think that concept or that philosophy sort of rather burnt itself into the I don't know whether you read the piece on expats not being able to send their postal votes in on time because the government has decided to choose a courier firm, not the Royal Mail. The gold standard of delivery, and in consequence, this delivery firm have subcontracted to a third-party postal service who cannot guarantee, I think, within 5 days delivery from today.
Incredible.
And I think, from memory, I think most of the expat vote in the referendum actually were Remainers. So I don't think it's actually done us any harm at all.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I mean, the papers, how much more can she take? How much more can we take?
Good point.
Yeah, tears in the backseat too, comparing her to Maggie. She ain't no Maggie.
No. Do you know what? This woman has demonstrated, in actual fact, that there is no dignity whatsoever left in politicians. Maggie, she didn't win by the majority she needed to in the first vote, and she chose therefore to stand down as prime minister. Now this idiot, I can only. I'm trying to be polite here. I mean, to bring a deal 3 times to the table, and then bring it a 4th time with a potential second referendum. Yeah. I mean, what was she thinking?
Yeah, it's just incredible. It's incredible. I mean, is she deluded? Is she controlled? Is this some sort of MK Ultra thing? Is she some sort of CIA psyop?
Do you know what? I mean, she reminds me of Idi Amin, except without the guns. He refused to go until the bullets came flailing through the door. I mean, utterly devoid of dignity, honesty. I mean, Christ alive, where do you get DNA like that?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Breitbart's talking about milkshakes on an elderly veteran wearing a Brexit Party rosette. Oh, come on. Come on, people. This is outrageous. Pictures and videos circulating on social media appear to show an elderly gentleman wearing a Brexit Party rosette who has been milkshaked outside a polling station in England. With British voters going to the polls in the European Parliament elections today, the apparent victim, named as Don and described as a 22-year veteran of the parachute regiment in several tweets, so far unverified, is said to have had the drink thrown over him outside a polling station. The incident appears to have taken place in Northtown Rushmore, based on signage visible in the pictures, with Hampshire Constabulary telling Breitbart London they received a report at 10:06 a.m. from a third party about an assault on a man in his 80s at North Lane, Aldershot. They confirm they are now investigating the incident and trying to make contact with the victim. Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage released a statement on the incident Thursday afternoon condemning the attack. He said, "Yet more disgusting behaviour. When democracy fails, civility ends. Let's get Brexit done and finish this. I have phoned Don's home to commiserate. His son said he is undeterred, still on the polling station, and will now be there till 10 p.m. tonight. Well done, that man," said Mr. Farage. Look at that. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is the kind of guy that with life on the line for his country, and people just mad. Had the referendum gone the other way, Rodri, I would have just accepted it as a democratic decision. I might have said I don't trust the polling and all the rest of it, but I wouldn't have harked on about it. There's a big disparity between the left and the right, if you like, between these so-called liberals with a capital L, because they sure as hell ain't liberal with a small L, and these so-called conservatives, with small c conservatives, who seem to be conservative.
Well, I think one of the ironies is that the Ramon lot claim that the Brexiteers are modern day sort of heathen, prehistoric man, racist, rude, thick. Yet it's the Remainers who are capable of attacking an 80-year-old veteran who served his country. I think the Brexit vote actually comes from the backbone of Britain, where decency abounds. It does not abound with this liberal lot.
Yeah.
If we come back to, I don't know whether you've seen Robin Tilbrook's interview on the RT channel.
No, I haven't seen it, but I did know that he was on it. Yeah, no, that was fantastic. That Robin Tilbrook, who's suing the government. Yeah, Rodri here is guaranteeing that case, and he's suing the government, citing that they extended Article 50 illegally because there was no Act of Parliament to do it. And obviously, we're covering that very, very closely on this show. Please carry on. So, he was on RT. At last, he got some fake stream time. He's been in Express as well, and maybe the Daily Mail, but that's about it. He certainly isn't getting the kind of coverage that Gila Miller got.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Robin would have sent it to you, or I can send it to you. And I watched it 10 minutes ago, just before coming on. And he expresses the case very simply, very eloquently. But thank God at last someone's actually taken the time to interview him and find out what the case is about. A very senior editor who shouldn't be named, because apparently the conversation was off the record, right, was asked, well, why aren't you covering this Tilbrook case? Because the repercussions are enormous. If there is judgment in our favour. And I can't be gender specific because it will give an idea as to the identity. But the editor in question, again, at a very senior level, BBC, basically said, blanket ban.
That's right.
We've been told, don't cover it.
That's right. That's right.
And also, Robin's Facebook page has been pulled. And
that's right. That's right.
Again, it was pulled on the basis that
on what grounds? It's actually is he not? He's reported that to the police. He came on the show the other day, and he said he's reported that to the police because he's standing as an MEP. What they did is apparently it's illegal.
Well, do you know what the irony, Ollie, is this? And it did bring a wry smile to my face. Under the laws regarding electoral tampering, and they're quite severe, the punishments. You cannot interfere in an election campaign. You might choose not to report it, but that's not the same as actually pulling a platform, which is a public communications platform. And if Robin is successful, or the police decide to bring a prosecution, which I think they should, Facebook may well try and defend itself by saying it is a private network. Well, yours truly actually is a precedent to prove that it is not, because I was prosecuted under the Communications Act 2003, where the starting point, which no one was going to deny, that Facebook actually is a public communications network.
You were prosecuted for something you put on a private page, no?
Yeah, but the point is, even if it's a private page, Facebook is considered a public communications network. And that's been accepted in a number of different cases. But mine was the last precedent to prove that Facebook actually is a public communications network. Therefore, it is bound by these electoral legals, which carry criminal penalty. So Mark Zuckerberg, cancel your holiday to London.
You were stitched up. We might touch on that in a little bit. Look, I've pulled that up, this interview. Let's have a listen, just out of interest. It's only 4.5 minutes. Let's have a listen and check this out. This is Robin Tilbrook, the one man in this country who is suing the government over this, what he cites as the illegal extension of Article 50. Yeah, very much. I mean, it's true. You know what? We should all be getting behind this guy. Anyway, let's hear this interview on RT.
One man's on a mission to prove we've actually already left the EU. And English Democrat leader and Brexiteer Robin Tilbrook says he'll go to court to prove it. He believes the extension beyond the initial March the 29th deadline is invalid, as Theresa May didn't have the power to amend the withdrawal process. Well, the government says his case is totally without merit, but that hasn't stopped him raising nearly £60,000 to fund his challenge. And I'm delighted to say the man himself, Robin Tilbrook, joins me live. Good. Robin, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. Well, on the face of this, you could say it looks crazy, a little sort of left of field, but tell me why you think we've already left.
Hold on a sec. For the sake of Cleggbook, yeah, this is called fair dealing. I can plaze this. It's newsworthy, yeah, all right, okay.
Yes, well, I don't think it's all that crazy, actually. The point is we served our notice, a two-year notice period, which was served in accordance with the judgment in the G. Miller case, which meant that we had an Act of Parliament. The Act of Parliament was very limited. It simply said in 137 words that the government had the power to serve a notice withdrawing us from the EU. There's nothing else in that act of significance.
Hold on, just before we carry on, Rodri, let me do that. So that's Yvette Cooper's bill, yeah, that went through the Lords and then it became an act. Is that correct? The
Yeah.
Oliver Letwin. Okay, all right. Okay, just wanted to get that right.
That notice was served. It expired on the 29th of March, and
So,
the normal
sorry,
thing.
Ollie.
No, I've cocked that up. Sorry, carry on. Yeah, please put me right there.
No, the what Robin is referring to is the original bill that was passed following the Gina Miller case. Nothing to do with the subsequent bill that was presented to Parliament the week after March the 29th.
Right.
That's what he goes on. I've heard the interview just shortly. So that's what he's referring to.
It is correct to say, is it not, that there was no act of Parliament to extend Article 50. That was basically done, if you like, on royal prerogative, is it? I.e., the Prime Minister made the decision. Is that their case?
Do you know what? If you carry on with the interview, he explains it.
Okay.
Much better than I can.
Okay, fine. Sorry.
That happens when your notice expires is that you're out of whatever it is that you've served your notice about. And in this case, the government didn't go back to Parliament and get another Act of Parliament that enabled Theresa May to ask for more time. It didn't go back to Parliament to ask for a power to agree an extension of time. And one of the other things that the Gina Miller case made very clear was that in our constitution, once there is an Act of Parliament, government ministers have no power to go against that act. So it is actually quite a straightforward claim in one sense, but it has very far-reaching consequences, of course.
Indeed, Robin. Let's have a look at some of the things you said, though. I mean, even if, and it's a big if, we have left, given that no one else thinks we have, doesn't that sort of negate the truth as you see it?
Well, it isn't that no one else thinks that we have. We've consulted widely amongst solicitors, barristers, QCs, and so far we've come across almost nobody who said that we haven't got a strong case. And I think the sort of general legal position is that we've got a very strong case. The point is that the politicians haven't acknowledged it, and the mainstream media have been here in England have been very reluctant to report anything about it at all. Whereas, if you think back to the Gina Miller case, at the same stage that we're at, you could hardly turn on your television or listen to a radio without somebody going on about Gina Miller.
Well, let's also look at some of your supporters then, Robin. I mean, can you give us a sort of taste who your donors are? Who are the people who are actually backing you?
They're mostly ordinary members of the public who believe strongly in Brexit, and so they've been willing to donate money to us. Nobody's donated more than a few £1,000s, and most donations are £10, $20, £25. So it really is a proper crowd-funded case. And in fact, you were saying that we'd raised 58,000. But basically, we've had a number of different ways in which we've raised money. Some of which is specifically earmarked for the case, and others of which is generally supporting the English Democrats. Because we are the people who are bringing the claim. So obviously, everything that we have is really on the line as far as the case is concerned. That is as the political party. That's not individual liabilities.
Indeed, Robin. Let's also, if I could ask you one quick last question. If you do win your case, we'll have the hardest of hard Brexit instantly. You'll destroy the country, wouldn't you?
No, not at all. A lot of
the Prime Minister's doing that for us.
That actually, from where we are now, the best option is to leave with no deal Brexit or World Trade Organization terms. So it wouldn't be a particularly bad thing. It would be quite a good thing. It's probably the only way we're going to get out. So if you are a Brexiteer, this really is the one and only way out.
Robin Tilbrook, God bless him. He really is a country gent, isn't he, Rodri?
Oh,
he really is.
I think he's tremendous through and through. On a previous show where he was grilled quite, I think, harshly and unfairly. His decency was just apparent, palpable.
Yeah, he's a very decent man. And I asked him some very hard questions, I have to say. Did ask him whether or not the whole thing was a scam. I've got no vested interest whatsoever, apart from getting my sovereignty, self-determination and all that. But people were chucking questions about. And, I thought, well, let's ask these questions and get them out there and get it on record. And his answers were eloquent. And the guy is just doing the best he can. He's just doing the best he can. He's invested so much into this personally. I imagine his hairline has receded slightly off the back of it as well. I say support the guy for crying out loud because anyway, I didn't want to concentrate too much on that, but I did want to ask you, Rodri, if there was any update at all on the case. What is the latest for people to know?
Well, the latest is that the government doesn't seem to feel still that there's any urgency about this matter. And they have written to Robin. This correspondence, unfortunately, is not on the court file, so we can't reveal it. But again, it's the government sort of getting cross, saying, "Well, why is this such an urgent issue? Why should it be heard in the next few months?" And which I think is the most asinine of responses. We've seen British Steel go bust, and by the way, I'd like to come back to that later in the programme.
Yeah, we'll talk about British Steel in a bit. Yeah, we will.
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, for those who've been in the steel business, and I have, Europe damaged our country's steel industry. Yeah. I mean, irreparably. And then when the Americans really took European steel manufacturers to task, the example, the French supported Ugine, which is one of their huge steel producers. Krupp was supported by the German government, etc., who governs in Holland. The Tony Blair government didn't see fit to support the steel union one iota, as Tony Blair was sidling up to idiot George Bush Jr. On the cusp of going to war in Iraq. Yeah. The rot in our country was as a consequence, really, of individual European member states cross-subsidising each other. And the specific example is when British Steel was merged with the Dutch company Huygens, or how you pronounce it, to become Chorus. Guess which workers were made redundant first? It was the British workers, because we're the cheapest ones to make redundant. In terms of percentage job losses, most of the Dutch kept their jobs because it's more expensive to fire a Dutchman than it is a bloke from South Wales or Scunthorpe or Teesside. And that's a direct result of EU subsidy being geographically directed to preferred member states. And clearly we were not one of them.
We have had, it seems to me, our heavy industry systematically vandalized, dismantled by EU directive. That is actually the case, is it not? Officially, that is all on record. No,
a lot of it is. I mean, if we come back to the post Second World War, it goes back to the iron and coal treaty, I think originally dated 1947. And heavy industry was considered so crucial for the rebuilding of industry after the Second World War. It was to prevent unfair competitive advantage amongst, then not the EU didn't exist at that point, but amongst the Allies. Now, what I find absolutely extraordinary is that the Germans were given money at a competitive interest rate, much lower than that was available to British industry, in order to help rebuild their country and their industrial platform. And this continued right through through the 1970s. So there we were struggling with the equivalent of steamships versus diesel tankers. In their case, the Germans were investing in the latest high-tech equipment of the day, using money borrowed from the Allies, whilst we were having to struggle along with restricted capital investment, much higher cost of capital. And I think the City of London actually does have a lot to answer for. Short-termism, which they're the combination of things which have hurt British heavy industry. Government certainly didn't help, didn't support our interests in Europe. Why is it that Porsche decided to manufacture all their what's the little Porsche called? The entry level Porsche.
I'm not sure. I'm not the dinky one, the dinky toy one.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
100% of it was
Mattel.
built outside.
No.
Sorry?
No, the Mattel. No, I'm joking. I don't know. I don't know. Carry on.
But 100% of it was built and assembled outside of Germany. And that's because Porsche were given a massive subsidy to create employment in another area of the EU. Now, it's all well and good for Germany to sort of say, all right, well, we can afford to lose those jobs, which would otherwise have been created in Germany. But if you look at the German economy, it has the greatest trade surplus because of its exports. We don't share that advantage. I mean, one of the fears of Ramona's is that if we go out on WTO terms, which I pray to God, if God is caring and kind,
and an Englishman. So carry on.
Yeah, do you know what? I bet you he is.
Well, if he likes a good pint, he would be. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Actually, I would say a British passport holder, one of Her Majesty's subjects. None of this citizen nonsense.
Right. Yes. Look, I mean, it had it in 1939. If we'd had the kind of equivalent heavy industry to what we have now, it would have just been immediate surrender. No, it would have been immediate surrender. We wouldn't have been able to compete with the Nazi war machine. We wouldn't have been able to say, okay, you know what? We better start building Spitz. We better start building, I don't know, whatever those blow-up tank things that Churchill fooled them with at Dunkirk. We would have been absolutely, it would have been a no-go. It would have been Halifax, yeah, it's fine, mate. We love fascism. Go for it. No worries. We would not have been able to defend against fascism in 1939, given the equivalent situation.
We used agility and imagination, and in actual fact, in the one of the advisors to David Stirling, who created the Special Air Service, and I can't remember the bloke's name, but his department was called the Special Air Service, and that's where Stirling nicked the name from. These two characters got on very well, and one of the ploys to confuse the Germans that we did actually have an airborne force is the resistance fighters, various parts of Europe, were told, here is a parachute, just open it up and stick it in the field so that the Germans can find these parachutes and put out as many as you can, to give the Germans the impression that actually we had blokes jumping out of planes and they were sort of buried behind lines in the woods. But in terms of our ability to fight I will call them Krauts, I'm not particularly fond of Germans. Olly, you said let your hair down.
I've got some great friends who are German Krauts, including my sister-in-law, who I love very much. But they got to be more canny with their politicians. Carry on, sir. Just a little bit of a clause there.
But the thing is, what did we do? I mean, in 1942, we were really struggling, but we borrowed a considerable sum of money from America, a lot of equipment, heavy equipment that we couldn't produce in the UK. We borrowed the money and spent it in America. And in actual fact, we are the only country to have repaid its war loans. And from memory, that was March 2007. And I remember that date very specifically because I was in a prison in Germany, Nuremberg. So it sort of stood out. None of the other allies were held to task. And in actual fact, what add insult to injury, I think it was who was the foreign secretary during the reunification of Germany?
Oh, blimey! I don't know. I can't remember. I think it could have been Lord Carrington, but right.
If it's not, I apologise, my lord. But the point is that we forgave the Germans any reparation as a gift to them to help sort out reunification.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
They were
and yet we were still
again.
paying off our war debt until about 5 years ago. We only finished paying it off during Obama's presidency to the United States.
Well,
then he kicked the bust of Churchill out of the Oval Office.
Yeah,
what a bloody cheek, man.
It was March 2007 or April 2007 was the final payment, and we paid in full. We didn't ask for a discount. It was British stiff upper lip.
We have been fleeced. We have been fleeced, haven't we? And where are the questions about British Steel? Let me just show you. For example, this is Telegraph, Torygraph, Buildergraph, whatever it's called. This is their front page today. So they're leading on Brexit latest. Theresa May indicates she will change her new Brexit deal in order to cling to power. We'll come on to that again in a minute. I might give her a call, actually. That could be very interesting. I might give her a shout in a sec. I've got a number. Yeah. We've got Ambrose Evans Pritchard is saying the Fed warns it will not ride to the rescue of Wall Street. Well, I mean, that's probably a pretty important story, I guess. But then Sir Philip Green grabbed a woman's breasts, according, I don't know whether that's actually an allegation or what, but it's up there as a top story. Sorry, Game of Thrones haters entitled Man Babies don't get to decide how a series ends. Is within their top 4 or 5 stories. And then, where are you in the 5 stages of Brexit grief? Asked Judith Woods. And then they got ex-football coach Bob Higgins. Well, I mean, it was an abuse case, 23 kids. I mean, we should be asking about Ted Heath and whether or not he was bribed to take us into the EU because of what was his top cop at Wiltshire called, he was 110% certain. I think that's exactly, it was 110 or 120. I don't know. You can only get 100% anyway. That Ted Heath was a paedophile. Where are the questions about that? But my point here, before I get into too much of a need on going to rant, is that where is the story about British Steel? Where are the questions about British Steel? When people go to the polls today, they deserve, I think, the information to know that the reason that British Steel has gone down is because of this carbon credit type stuff, which the EU has imposed on us, which has basically fined Tata through the roof. That's one reason. And the other, just the systematic dismantling of our industry. We're now talking about having our warships built by, I don't know, the Greeks or something. I mean, it's just an absolute joke. It just doesn't make any. People need to know what's happened to British heavy industry that is a support industry to our defence, to our national defence. If you haven't got any national defence, you ain't got nothing. Am I somehow wrong here, Rodri? Is British Steel not the most important story? I mean, obviously Brexit continues to rumble on, but we should have been out anyway. It's being used as a distraction, it seems to me. Stuff like Game of Thrones and The Telegraph being used as a distraction. British Steel is a massive story. What is it? 5,000 jobs gone? You got that Carney saying, it's all going to go totally tits up if you vote to leave. Not leave, vote to leave. Well, actually, it didn't, by the way. And then it's all going to go totally tits up and actually leave. Project. We have seen a concrete example of that as a result of our EU membership. Where are the questions from the media, Rodri?
Well, I've actually read quite a lot about British Steel, and I've got to say, hats off to Tata Group, who stepped in to buy Land Rover, Range Rover. They took a massive gamble, and it was, they didn't receive huge subsidies to do that. The market's changed for them, and I think they've suffered by perceived build quality and unrefreshed design. Their gamble on British Steel again was huge, and it was suffering long before the referendum. By the way, it was taken over by Grey Bull Capital, who've been raping the country, country and company. And I think that's another shock horror story, which is when people get into detail.
What is that? A kind of a quadrilla type situation there?
Well, they were responsible for the takeover of Comet and then dumped the
Philip
pensioners.
Green type thing, basically bleeding the company to death and buying super yachts with the money.
Yeah. Again, I think that the short-termism in the City of London. My father was a stockbroker, so I'm well acquainted as a young lad with the square mile and the practices and so forth. And the problem with our sources of capital is they're so short-term. Whereas in Germany, you expect to borrow money for 20, 30 years at a relatively low rate of interest. You try and borrow, well, first of all, there's very little debt available from our thieving banks. And the sources of capital of second resort, they want 10, 15, 20% rates of return per annum, which means that you as management, you can't take a long-term view. I've never been a great defender or fan of the square mile. Massive banking fees. For example, if you look at Marks and Spencer's, they raised 70 or 80 million pounds, and the underwriters took an almost 10% fee to underwrite the issue. Now, this is Marks and Spencer's. This would never happen in the States or Carrefour in France or Aldi in Germany.
10%? Anyway, they got 58 million odd quid for doing the paperwork.
I think the issue, for
underwriting.
I can't remember the exact numbers, but the net to M&S, I think, was 579 million or 580 million, and the cost of it was 600 and something million was the gross sum raised, gross of fees.
Okay, that's true. Okay,
but don't forget, there's a bit of back scratching in the City of London.
Yeah.
If we look at Ken Clark, who joined BAT, British American Tobacco, as the chairman.
Must we? Okay, yeah, go on.
Actually, speaking of traitors to the country, the wonderful news was the removal of the whip from that absolute, I don't want to use unchristian language, Michael Heseltine.
Yeah, that's right. What farm subsidies does he get under the cap, by the way? Sorry, as an aside, carry on, please.
Well, my father was a government whip in the House of Lords, and he part of his portfolio was the Ministry of Defence, and he had the great misfortune to have to work with Michael Heseltine, and I don't know whether the story's true. I'm inclined to believe it is, but my father was in the Welsh Guards, and Michael Heseltine, this is during national service. He was destined to go into the Welsh Guards also. You got a dispensation if you stood as a member of Parliament, but if you weren't elected, you didn't get a seat. You then had to go back to complete your national service. Well, Michael Heseltine was so deeply unpopular that when he failed in his election attempt and didn't win a seat, the Welsh Guards said, "Tell you what, don't bother finishing your national service. We don't want you back." And this is the man who deposed Margaret. So,
this is the guy that wrote on the back of an envelope when he was at Cambridge or Oxford or something that basically his career projection, which ended up with PM. He decided that that's exactly the same deal with that Theresa May woman, isn't it? She decided when she was Oh, I'm going. These people that have that kind of ambition are so dangerous. It seems to me. I'm going to play. Seeing as you brought up Ken Clark, and I know I play it a lot, and we're having a bit of fun tonight, Roger. I don't want to do too much serious stuff tonight. But on the other hand, you mentioned Ken Clark. I just want to remind people, seeing as they've gone to the polls today, I want to remind them what Tim Fortescue said. Now, Tim Fortescue was Ted Heath's whip. Running the little black book and all that with all the secrets of the MPs. And he was a colleague of Ken Clark. Ken Clark was a fellow whip, a fellow whip with access to this black book. One would assume. I have never heard a single question put to him, despite the fact that he is the most, he's the guest that's been on Question Time more than any other. Bar none. This was his colleague, Tim Fortescue, talking about how they oil the rails of democracy in that government that took us into the EEC.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips and tell them the truth and say, no, I'm in a jam, can you help? It might be debt, it might be scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal which a member seemed likely to be mixed up in. They'd come and ask if we could help. And if we could, we did. And we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points. That sounds a pretty nasty reason, but it's one of the reasons. If you can get a chap out of trouble, then he'll do as we ask forevermore.
It's just unbelievable. It just beggars belief. I don't really want to get into a big old debate about that today because I want to have a bit of fun. But it is relevant. And the fact is that this guy, Ken Clark, Tim Fortescue's colleague, at that very time that Tim Fortescue is referring to, is now the elder of the House, wheeled out on God knows what fake stream media channel to tell us how we need the EU and how we're stupid. And by the way, parliamentary democracy trumps the plebs. The plebs must not have the say. The their elders know better. He goes on the media and he spouts that line and tells us that we should not have had that a referendum shouldn't count. And then it turns out that his own office is bribing child rapists to back that government that took us into the EEC in the first place.
Well, Olly, as a journalist, obviously you're far more inclined, and it's your obligation to take a balanced view. I mean, reading about this guy Carl Beach, who's currently on trial in Newcastle Crown Court.
Yeah.
The guy who claims to have been raped by variously General Bramall. What sort of idiot copper actually would take all that seriously? Mm-hmm. Furthermore, it completely undermines the intellect of Tom Watson, who, for political purposes, encouraged this idiot, this fantasist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do wonder though if that was a kind of a psyop. I do wonder if that was all put up. If this guy, he was called Nick, wasn't he? When Xaro News, I think it was breaking this.
Carl Beach is his real name.
Carl Beach. Yeah.
But,
I do wonder if that was a contrived, if you like, a kind of a false flag. I don't know, but it's so convenient because it's distracted from what is alleged to have gone on at Elm Beach, or whatever in Barnes, where apparently there were conservative ministers mixing with Sinn Féin politicians at the time that there was a mainland bombing campaign going on in the UK, and the allegations being that, for example, they were shagging little boys in there and all the rest of it. And it's hard to know what is the truth of this and what isn't, but we do know that there were some terrible things. Like, we know Lord Steele has admitted to the IICSA, the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, that he knew about Cyril Smith and stuff like that, and it just makes you wonder. The thing is, there is all this smoke, and we don't seem to be able to get to the bottom of it. honestly and reasonably. Is this? Would you say that this is a matter of national security then, Rodri? But this is not the way we should be running a country, you know?
No, no, it's not. It's indecent. I'm afraid it's the way things are. But if you look at the nature of people who want to be politicians, either you're thoroughly decent, and I'll use Dennis Skinner as an example. And please God, don't prove me wrong. You know, he's on the front page of tomorrow's Mirror, and it was some terrible scandal. But I think that there have been generations of committed vocational politicians. But if we take the Heseltine type of politician, who I despise, I mean,
not saying that he's a paedophile, but yes, go on, Rodri.
Well,
go on.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's got the cash to go the whole way. Well, you can say anything in jest, by the way. But do qualify it. And well, you know, here's a guy who's just been hell bent on power.
Yes. Yes.
Throughout, yeah, it's his career at all costs. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think the House of Parliament, they need to be swept out, because we don't have people of principle, people with integrity. It's like, oh no, we'll toe the party line. Oh bugger, I'm a paedophile. They found out. Okay, I'll vote for anything that the whips tell me to. You know, when we talk about dishonesty, and this is, I'm going to have a little nab at Emma, whatever she's called, Arbuthnot, her husband James Arbuthnot, and putting Emma to one side. Here is a man who was trained.
She was the person that judged you. She was your judge. Okay, carry on. Yeah.
I thought referred to as the Hampshire housewife. But here you have James Arbuthnot, a barrister specialised in trusts and estates. Mm-hmm. So he understands fiduciary obligation, etc. Mm-hmm. Here is the guy who, under Archie Hamilton, was Minister for Defence Procurement. Mm-hmm. Now, he's the one responsible for the boots that didn't turn up in Iraq.
Right, really?
Right. Soft-skin Land Rovers, which were completely, I mean, it's like turning up with a piece of paper in front of you. You know, the men having to buy their own Kevlar armoured vests.
That's right.
And he was subsequently promoted to be Chief Whip by William Hague. So he knew exactly what the rules of the game were. Yet he had to hand back 40 grand of taxpayers' money for having his swimming pool cleaned and silverware polished, etc. And if anyone, you know, I had a little bit of sympathy for some of the newer MPs who didn't understand the game, and their elders would sort of say, well, look, you know, if you buy cat litter, just chuck it in your expenses. Yeah. But if anyone should have known better, it's James Arbuthnot. A man of absolute, I mean, in my view, integrity out the window. Same as his wife, who judged me, and it's not sour grapes. Actually, having served, you know, my sentence of 12 weeks, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Ironically, it was well. The first few hours were a bit uncomfortable, but overall, it was an enlightening experience. Mm-hmm. So I don't regret that episode in my one bit.
You gained a godson too, didn't you? You gained a godson. You befriended your cellmate. And go on, please carry on.
Yeah, but the point is that the Director of Public Prosecutions of the day, Alison Saunders, or Saund, whatever she's called, she was determined to make an example of someone.
Yes.
In respect of Gina Miller, and it was the flavour of the day. And it's like, go and get him. Lord St David's, that looked, you know, good headline. Don't attack us liberals and, you know, a woman and, you know, Facebook. Make a precedent. Mm-hmm. Now, my view on justice is that it is sacred, and a judge should judge based on the law, justice, and discretion.
You were given 12 weeks for basically saying what the rest of us were thinking. Yeah. I mean, it's something that when I was a kid on Dick Emery or something, it would have just been a joke. Run her over! For crying out loud, get rid of that word. I mean, it would have just been a satirical aside. And you got 12 weeks for saying that in a private on a private page on Facebook.
Well, it was even better. It's accidentally run over. You know, if you accidentally trip someone over or pouring, you know, I mean,
haven't these people ever read Private Eye? I mean,
the answer is clearly not. But I think one of the oddest remarks came from the Crown Prosecution Service, and they said, "Well, we put it to the the Lady Arbuthnot that the sum mentioned of 5,000 guineas or pounds is a realistic sum. If Lord St David's had offered 10p, that clearly would have been funny." Or it would have been taken as humour. Or if he put £1 billion, but £5,000, that might have appealed to a particular type of person. And I had to remind him, if you commission a murder, probably the last organ that you're gonna advertise on is bloody Facebook. I mean, Olly, am I mad? I mean, maybe someone has advertised for criminality on Facebook, but not to the best of my knowledge.
No, you're not mad. So I'll tell you who's mad. Hold on, I'll pull her up. Here we go. Let's have a look. There you go. Mad as a box of frogs. Our dear Prime Minister. I actually did a bit of a what's the pet equivalent of a vox pop? Your Latin's probably better than mine, sir. Pet pop. I don't know. Vox pet or something. I don't know. I mean, she's just absolutely bonkers, isn't she? She needs to be pulled out in an ambulance. Anyway, I've been having fun with that. There's you can have a laugh on my timeline if you want. There's her cabinet. She's selling it on eBay. It's empty. And it's a bit damaged on the right-hand side, and it comes with knobs, according to eBay. But it's just unbelievable, isn't it? It's unbelievable. Yeah, I'll take a few comments. I'm neglecting our wonderful folks that bother to comment, and that's a bit naughty of me. Amanda Rolfson says, development. A late 1960s power struggle established the need for unanimous agreements on key decisions, effectively giving member states a veto. It has been argued that this slowed union by 2 decades. Over the 70s and 80s, membership of the EEC expanded, allowing Denmark, Ireland and the UK in 1973, Greece in 1981, and Portugal and Spain in 1986. Britain had changed its mind after seeing its economic growth lag behind the EEC's, and after America indicated it would support Britain as a rival voice in the EEC to France and Germany. Ireland and Denmark, heavily dependent upon the UK economy, followed it in to keep pace and attempt to develop themselves away from Britain. Rodney Trotsky, another Rodney, says, we need to stop voting for the main 2 parties. They are covered in criminality and they cannot change because they are hiding too much. We could expose them if they basically, the grammar's not good, Rodney, but they should be resigned to the history books, I think he's saying. And he says, change the law or do not open for 100 years files. That FCO 30/1048, that basically Foreign and Commonwealth Office document that advised we would be losing our sovereignty, was covered up by Heath for 30 years. I bet now they wish that they'd covered it up for 100 years. But then again, who cares? Because you hardly ever see any stories about it. I've never seen anything on the BBC at all about the FCO 30/1048. Have you? Nothing. The only shag rag, actually, that I've seen cover that stories has been the Express. So, some merit to them. I mean, that's the kind of story. It's a bit like British Steel. Journalists should be shouting from the rooftops, hold on a sec, what's going on here? Questions, please. None. Bugger all. Stephen C. Palfrey says, my other page on 30-day ban, that's very clickbook, well done, Stephen. 3rd this year, must be doing something right. Lots of laughs. Yeah, Stephen, keep going, mate, keep going. Kevin Lamond, the wife, just told me she's voted Conservative. Pack your bags, darling. I'll take you to your mother's tomorrow when I get home. Oh, dear. Aye. And Amanda Rolfson also says that was the best one. Oh, yeah, they're referring to my cabinet thing. Sue Dacey says, read today that everything Mrs. May has done has been to lead us to another referendum with a chance of Remain or remain. I mean, it's just been pretty clear, has it not, Rodri, that we have been so stitched up with this woman being. I mean, you should divorce your wife. I mean, how? It's just incredible. How on earth did they think that they would get away and be able to say, "Oh, it's all fine. This is all democracy." To put a remor on someone who is a clear with no ideological stand on anything. Sharia May, for crying out loud. I mean, she loves misogyny and all that sort of stuff. We know what this woman is. We know what she did to the police during her tenure as Home Secretary, and the prison service, and she's a disgusting, vile creature from the Blue Lagoon. They gave her, they gave us this woman, the Conservative Party. I personally, I know that there are some probably good people in the Conservative Party, one or two, just maybe a handful who really, really do care, but that they have basically been conditioned. They've been in the party for so long that they still want to try and support that party. But personally, I just cannot understand in any way, shape or form of supporting anybody who would remotely support a party that gave us a Bilderberger, a fascist, somebody who cares more about foreign interests, people like George Soros, than she does about the people that pay her wage, vote for her party to get in. And I mean, it just absolutely beggars belief. Can you see the Tory party surviving this? Does it matter? I mean, is British politics basically, is it hands up now? Because you know what? We get the Lisbon Treaty comes in, and then you got our military, you've got our nuclear capability, and then it's too late anyway. Is that what they're thinking? Is that what she's thinking? That it doesn't matter, that the Tory party is toast anyway, so might as well just go the whole hog, complete.
Do you know what? I think she's so egotistical. The quality of intellect. I mean, I've voted Conservative all my life until today. Today is the very, very first time I've not voted Conservative. I would vomit internally voting Conservative. Just looking at the Conservative Party, they deserve absolutely everything they get. I mean, Labour under Corbyn, that's a joke anyway. I mean, that's the Sesame Street.
better than under a Blairite, no. I mean, at least Corbyn is Eurosceptic from the point of view. I mean, he can't do maths. I agree with you. His maths is crap, but nonetheless, I mean, just imagine if it was a Blairite. But do you think? Okay, who's worse in your opinion, the Conservative Party or the Labour Party? Because the Liberal Democrats, I mean, they're not democratic and they're not liberal, but on the other hand, at least they stick to what they say, which is basically, I'm an abject remoron, called Vince Clarke, who, I don't know, needs some Viagra or something. But in the case of the Tories and Labour, blatant lies in those manifestos. Who's worse?
Do you know? I think when you look at some of the characters in the Labour Party. It's like Spitting Image, where you don't need puppets. The Conservative Party, I think, has just generated a degree of abject arrogance, where the Conservative. Well, I used to call myself Conservative. I don't now. I think it's a term of revilement. But in terms of looking forward, I think what Nigel Farage has done has been nothing short of spectacular. And love him or hate him, he has stuck to his guns. He's a chap who's very eloquent, concise, and you can talk about anything with him, and he doesn't have to refer to notes. In the same way that, for example, if you ask Diana a question, she has to look at a calculator if it has anything to do with her numbers. Well,
she doesn't know how to work a calculator. She doesn't know how to put the batteries in. Sorry, carry on.
She's value for money. I mean,
she's good value from an entertainment point of view. I'll tell you what, if the Spitting Image was she would be the most popular skits on Spitting Image today.
Well, can you imagine the imagination that would be required to make a puppet of her. You know, how could you overemphasize her features? You can't. The sort of vacant gaze. I mean, yeah. And as for Steptoe, I mean, he's ready for a sitcom. But Farage, I think, gives new hope. And I think, funny enough, he's the sort of guy who can take people from different political persuasions and get them to agree on something, a common cause. It's going to be interesting to see how his party, and I think post-Brexit, he's obviously going to have to change the name of the party because that's a one-purpose party. But I think he is destined, ironically, to be a prime minister at some point, and to show how stupid that egotistical moron Theresa May is. She rejected the notion of putting Farage in the House of Lords. An intelligent person would have put him in the House of Lords as quickly as they bloody could, to avoid, inflicting greater damage on the House of Commons, in the House of Commons, rather.
Right. Thank goodness she didn't. She could have bought him.
But what an act of utter stupidity.
No, I mean, not everybody, it has to be said around here. I know a lot of folks, they do have concerns about Farage. The fact is that it seems to me, irrespective of Farage, is the grassroots that's the key. You know, this upswell. This is a very British revolution going on now. It
is, and what I don't know if it. I would love to see the socio-demography of his voter base. I think it's actually more diverse than the press would have us believe. The press would have us believe that, it's people like Tommy Robinson, perceived thug. He's done his time. He's got his views. Freedom of speech. I don't have a problem with him.
Quite right. I agree.
I think his power base. I mean, not Tommy Robinson's, Farage's, is diverse because we've had enough of this two-party system. We feel that we've been lied to. We've been cheated. And that's it. Just by the way, when we do get the Robin Tilbrook Act through, this is the lager that I'm going to become distributor for.
Fuck off, like now. I'm not being rude. Rude. There's no C in that word, and no U either. FOKOF. Fuck off lager.
Absolutely.
I'm not being rude. It's a family show. We don't swear on this show. Apart from bollocks, because that's to use the parliamentarian these days, or the Liberal Democrat. Fuck off.
Can you say that with a South African accent?
Fuck off, lager. Diplomatic immunity.
And here's my other favourite.
Right. Oh, JLAL.
Yeah.
You brought back some interesting patés, didn't you, from your recent South African trip?
Well, people think they're a joke. I mean, the food in South Africa is fantastic. Crocodile pate, ostrich pate, zebra pate, springbok pate. I mean, a green mamba soup. I mean, it was brilliant.
Aye. Springbok. What their failed
rugby
players. They chop them up and okay, all right. I had a wonderful time in South Africa once doing that. The garden route and their biltong. Wow. Well, it stopped at this petrol station one day, and it was just a regular petrol station. Kind of like a bit all greasy and oil all over the place. Old style before the old health and safety rubbish. And next to the till, hanging up just next to the till, is a load of biltong, uncut. Yeah. And I said, that's quite good. I'll try some of that. Have some of that. It was I love embutido, like all this kind of cured sausages and stuff like that, and jamon or whatever with its hams. Well, I love all that kind of cured meat type stuff. The biltong I had from that petrol station was the most delicious cured meat I ever had in my life. Absolutely incredible. He sliced it there right next to the till with his oily fingers, and me and the missus, we drove off eating that. It was absolutely incredible. They call it God's own country, don't they? South Africa.
Yeah, but I tell you what, we arrived in Joburg and were taken to this place called Southbury, which is spectacular. But on every beach, there's a white shark warning sign. And I thought, well, as beautiful as it is, and there are people surfing. I'm thinking, well, these absolutely insane. I mean, any fish big enough to sort of, leave you as just a floating torso.
Yeah, it's amazing. They are incredible the way they are. The Australians are the same, aren't they? They're so sort of ambivalent about the danger that they're surrounded by all the time. It's incredible. I don't know, seem to go into a different dynamic. Yeah, I've got mates who are South African who go kite surfing just off Cape Town, and it's full of sharks. It's full of sharks around there. And just it's fine, dude. And then we'll have a beer. I mean, they are. It's a different mentality. They're incredible.
Well, but I also love that they're sort of very straightforward sense of logic. I was invited by a banker friend of mine, who's South African, and he said, "Look, I'm going to do a charter. What do you fancy catching?" And I said, "Well, I fancy catching a shark, actually. Big one. You've got them down there."
Right. You're going to incriminate yourself again here, Rodri. You realise that?
Sorry?
You're probably going to incriminate yourself again. I think this is the third time so far on the show. Carry on.
Sammy the Seal will go unmentioned. But it was a couple of weeks later. All right, yes, we did leave a dead seal in a minibar in a hotel. It was dead anyway, but anyway, that was it's got one of these crazy things you get up to as a young chap. But he gives me a call saying, organise the skipper, this madman who would take you crocodile shooting in a war-torn country if that's what you fancy doing. And he phones up, he says, "Roger, I've got some great news." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "There's been a shark attack and a torso's been washed up on the beach." I thought, how on God's earth is that good news? He said, "Well, it's obviously been eaten by a great white shark, and that's very close to where we'll be fishing." I was just trying to work out the timeline of, dead person who's tragically been killed by an overgrown fish. So good news for us because it means we might get a good catch.
Blimey.
But well,
it's all right. He ate today. Yeah. No, he's in the waters. He's in the waters. Okay, a few comments. Kim Gilson, I think people are just so desperate to believe that we need a party to save us all. It's not going to work. I think the way forward may be independence, ex-military, real patriots of this country who want the best for this country. We're in a bit of a catch-22, Rodri, because on the one hand, I mean, I personally, I would love this utopian idea, independence, people that actually represent their constituents. I like the idea of direct democracy. I'm interested in PR as well, just from the point of view of getting, I don't know how the formula could work, but to get to that, we have to break the status quo. And we are actually in a remarkable situation now where, as you say, this could happen with the Brexit party.
Well, it's funny. Robin Tilbrook is a great political historian. And, in conversation with me, he said, "Rodri, when in your mind, when you're doing history as a school lad, do you think that the Tories and the Labour parties actually came into being?" And I thought, well, good question. In the Victorian age, we had the Tories and the Whigs. And he said, I forgive you for saying that, but nothing could be further from the truth. Both parties, the Tories and the Whigs, were basically, or each party, were made up of, they were sort of fairly loose political associations or alliances, but they weren't all on the same page. Mm. There were sort of varying shades of political view, and it was post the Second World War, where in actual fact, that's where things polarised. If you look at the traditional Labour Party, it was socially very conservative. The Conservatives were socially more open-minded and liberal. Mm-hmm. And now the reverse has happened. Politics evolve, we think, very quickly. In actual fact, it's over a much longer period of time that you get this polarisation. And, Farage is in there to stir things up. in actual fact, I think you'll get fresh people with fresh blood with opposing opinions in this Brexit party. And I agree with the earlier comment that we are looking for a party that is going to be the saviour, is going to be the Messiah.
Kim Gilson's comment.
Yeah, bravo, very observant.
Are we not in danger, though, also of replacing a status quo which does not represent droves of people? The kind of folks that Tommy Robinson represents, by the way. I mean, that I know that a lot of people have problems with Gerard Batten. I had Stephen Place on the show last night, who didn't say that, but he did say enough basically to make it pretty clear that there is going to be big head banging going on in UKIP as soon as these results are announced on Monday. It seems to me there's going to be big open debate about leadership contest. Of course, Gerard's tenure is nearly up, and whether or not he's going to run again. He said if he loses his seat as an MEP, he doesn't think he can. I think Stephen said something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to be putting words into his mouth. But basically, UKIP is kind of in turmoil at the moment, but despite the fact that it has done so well in getting itself out of bankruptcy, near as damn it, under Gerard Batten's tenure, and full marks for that, and it's opened up to a lot of people who haven't been represented. Are we not in danger now of maybe replacing a kind of a political system where, well, actually nobody really is represented, frankly, not really, not genuinely, for another system where more people are represented, but nonetheless, a lot of people, underprivileged people, will not be represented?
I think in that fact, please.
Well, I say this because Brexit Party, it seems to me, is a kind of a middle-class Brexit Party. And UKIP is more, if you like, a working-class Brexit Party. That's to stereotype. And, it's a generalization and all the rest of it. But that's the kind of the feeling I get. I would really, really like to see Brexit Party and UKIP somehow joining forces. That clearly isn't possible with the personality conflict between Farage and Batten. But I wonder if that might change. I don't know. But I don't know.
Like a Spice Girls reunion.
Really. But go on, Rodri. What? Go on.
No, I was going to say just like a Spice Girls reunion. Back on tour.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No. You're right. I'm getting far too serious. These are the kind of things. This is the kind of debate that Daily Brexit is going to be concentrating on off the back of these elections. Basically, to make sure that we can keep Farage held to account on his pledge for a WTO deal. And I've got no reason to say that he won't, by the way. Not at all. I mean, it's truth. I mean, he did more than any other person in the country to get us that referendum, in my opinion. I think it's pretty clear. But nonetheless, he's still a politician.
But you know what? He stood by his guns. And I think he demonstrates a dynamism in politics, just generically, that has been lacking in Britain since Margaret Thatcher. I mean, John Major.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, Christ, here you've got a guy who ran away from a circus to join a firm of accountants. A guy, who
his father was a ringleader or something. He was a ringmaster. Major Balls or something. Major. Yeah.
Well, and that was the shoe-in ultimately for Tony Blair, who's done more to destroy 500 years of British culture in one fell swoop. I mean, anyone who ever voted for Blair, well, the first time round, the Conservatives were lagging.
I did. Hands up. I apologise, everybody. The first time round, all that Cool Britannia nonsense, I voted for him, but it was to get rid of Major, who, after all, had taken us into Maastricht. But nonetheless, talk about going from the devil to the deep blue sea.
But did you vote for him a second time?
No, I didn't.
Well, that's the point. I can understand making the first time mistake of voting for him, but anyone who voted for him a second or a third time, frankly, should not be allowed to vote and should not be allowed to breed. The degree of stupidity, clearly the guy was a crook. Alistair Campbell.
He had a lovely smile, though. We're always sold on these smiles, aren't we? These lovely smiles, like Obama's lovely smile. Pope Francis' lovely smile, and yet, you know what? What's he actually done about the paedophilia in the Catholic faith? Well,
as a Roman Catholic, I should know, but I haven't got a clue. Oh, no. In actual fact, he's introduced an edict, which is now a requirement that if you suspect, it's the ultimate grassing law. You've got to grass up anyone you suspect of having unnatural urges
within 90 days. 90 days. If you've got some kind of evidence, then you're supposed to report it within 90 days. So how much of that could get covered up? Well, the first thing he did, sir, when he became Pope, sorry, the other Pope, because the other Pope, I don't know.
Oh, well, the German one, Benedict.
Hey, the first thing this second Pope, Pope 2 of these two popes, did, which is all very odd, very, very odd. It was to say, if we're not going to report paedophile allegations, Catholic priests to the police. We're not going to cooperate with police investigations. That was one of the first things he said with that lovely smile. But no, I'm going off. I went off topic. I'm sorry. You were saying about the war criminal and Major. Lovely.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, he was just so two-dimensional. I can't believe that our country was sucked in a second and a third time. And I agree with Jeremy Clarkson's description, by the way, of Gordon Brown.
Go on. What was that?
The least credible chancellor. I've got to say, the one thing that he did achieve was separating the Treasury or the Chancellor from the Bank of England.
Yes. That's right.
I think absolutely critical. But what I will not forgive
and also
Theresa
his five tests kept us out of the euro, basically because he didn't like Tony Blair. I don't know if that had anything to do with his five tests, actually.
He did the right thing for all the wrong reasons. But one of the things that I cannot forgive Theresa May for, or Cameron for that matter, is this bloody Canadian, Mark Carney, in the Bank of England. His job is to count. It's the accountant's job to account and record, not provide some financial analysis. It's not for him to tell us that Brexit's going to kill the economy. He's not a hedge fund manager. He's there to report and make suggestions on the financial targets of our economy, not how political decisions. It's not his interpretation that counts. And he should have been fired the first time he opened his mouth and made a political statement. The governor of the Bank of England is not there for politics.
No, that's right.
And I think Mervyn King very elegantly made a series of statements to that effect.
He did.
And I wish Mervyn King was a bit more vocal.
Yeah. Well, he probably is, but it doesn't get published. Maybe he is, but it doesn't get published. But yeah, no, you're right. He did. Carney went off to Bilderberg this last year, didn't he? With Amber Rudd and George Osborne all hanging out with old Kissinger. I don't know how that bloke stays alive, frankly. All that, I don't know whether it's baby's blood or what. Amanda Rolston says, I asked a Dutch MEP after discussions whether he had actually read the Lisbon Treaty. He was honest and said not. But then no one has. How is it possible to be an MEP if you're not going to read the literature? Chrissy Ford says, I don't trust any of Her Majesty's governments. Stuart Firth, BBC will face sanctions and fines from its new regulator unless it ends its Brexit bias. A former culture secretary and architect to the Royal Charter has warned. Oh, Stuart, I so hope so. Anthony Pobiatsin, whose name I never know quite how to pronounce your name, sir. I guess you're Polish by origin. I don't know. But he says Tommy Robinson has massive support. Yvonne Tierney says that I'm right about something or other. Even a clock's right twice a day, of course. Sue Dacey said, sad that Batten and Farage don't get on. If Farage gets in and we move to PR, it'll enable smaller parties to get in, representing more people. I really, really look forward to having these debates going forward now. I don't know about you, Rodri. I so look forward to moving on and having these debates about how we can, well, first get democracy back, whatever semblance of it we had, and then actually, trying to improve on it.
Ollie, I've got a question for you. On the basis that we win the court case, the Tilbrook case, you're going to have to rename your show. Yeah. Because the show will be obsolete. Have you given that much thought? What will you call it?
Oh, yeah. No, I did. I ditched Daily Brexit out of frustration ages ago and started doing what I want to do, which is Daily Chaos. Ordo ab chaos. Order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. That's what it is all about. That is how they play us, divide, rule us, and all the rest of it. But it's satire. I love satire, and that is what I want to be doing. Daily Chaos. I do not want to be doing this Daily Brexit. I'm not sure it was even not disingenuous calling it Daily Brexit when there is no Brexit. It's quite frustrating. But I have made the decision that until we do get Brexit, I will carry on with this. And once we have got our country back, then I'm going to have some fun, and it's going to be Daily Chaos. But there you go, mate. There you go. And you, sir, are going to be my co-host.
Oh no!
Yeah, Rod. And we're going to do the old Derek and Clive routine and swear like a couple of troopers, and it'll be on late night. Billy bonuses all round. That would be brilliant. That is your vintage, aren't you? How old are you?
Me, born 1966. I'm 52.
I was 69. Conceived in the summer of love, man.
Well, the last summer of love, and then it sort of went into Swedish porn. But there you go.
Well, that's another story. But my parents weren't into that. I don't think they were quite conservative. But my mum, bless her, she voted for one of the Brexit parties this time. For the first time in her life, she ditched the Tories. Dominic Greaves' constituency, Beaconsfield. She told him where to go. And by the way, I've been trying to get hold of that constituency association bloke, Mr. Nug, NG or something, to answer why they haven't yet deselected that abject cretin Ramoron Grieve, despite the fact that clearly there's been the vote for that and that folks want him gone in that constituency, despite the fact that they voted to leave. It wasn't a massive margin, but democracy, they voted to leave in that constituency and in the wider South Bucks constituency surrounding as well that constituency, and yet we've got Dominic Grieve. So I've written to him, and he's come back with lip service. First of all, he comes back to me and he says, oh, well, actually, I said it was on behalf of Daily Brexit and also on behalf of my mum, who's 86. And it's like, what's going on? What's going on? And he's come back, and first of all, he said, oh, well, this is all in hand because we're having a meeting about it to decide what to do. I said, right, okay, fine. And so I said, so what, the meeting then was supposed to have been on the next day. So I emailed him back the day after. And I said, right, so what's the deal with the meeting? And he then says, oh, I've put this in the hands of X because X will be able to help you better than I can. This is the constituency chairman in Beaconsfield, Mr. Nug, who I think is Chinese extraction or something or other. I don't know. But Mr. Nug, you are fake. Sorry, I apologise. Right, okay, just a bit of a rant there. We've had Colin Duff pop in to have a word. Hello, Colin. How are you doing, mate? Have you been and voted today?
I have indeed, yeah.
Good.
And I put my extra. Actually, I had my wife's been away for a week, and I had a proxy vote as well, and that led to the guy in the polling station being condescending to me as if I didn't know how I had to go on. And I thought, and I was just putting my ex in the wife's Brexit party box.
Yeah.
And I could hear him talking behind my back to the people on the other desk in there as well. And I went out to him and I said, do you know what, mate? I said, I used to be your age once. I said, no, I was far more intelligent than you.
Now, come on, you come on. Were you giving them a hard time though? I mean, these people, they don't get a decent education anymore, you know.
It clearly says on the card that they put through the box how you have to go if you're acting as a proxy.
Right. Yeah.
And he opened it up by saying, "Have you got the letter?" And I said, "Well, no. It tells you on the card, doesn't it? Your polling card, that how to act as proxy." So. And one from the other side turned around and said, "Oh yeah, that's correct." And then the other thing was, I insisted on having a pen. They said, "No, there's a pencil in the booth." I said, "No, I can have a pen." And
that's right.
Pointed to a sign on the desk, and he says, "Look, you can have either pencil or pen." I said, "No, exactly right. And I've chosen. I'd like to have a pen. Could I borrow your pen, please?" Yeah. And he actually asked the bloke on the other side if it was okay for him to lend me his pen.
Really?
And by that time, you can imagine. I mean, I've got the
So
patience.
they don't. I find it incredible that they even have pencils in those places. Rodri, do you think that they rig the vote?
Well, the
they did in Tower Hamlets, didn't they? Tower Hamlets, they did.
Oh yeah. And of course, as you know, I was trying to rig the vote locally by getting my brother-in-law's ballot paper and getting a bloke in a pub, who I could be convinced was going to vote the right way, and giving my brother-in-law's ballot paper. How does my brother-in-law actually get two ballot papers? One in London and one in Oxfordshire.
That's what they reckon happened with the students, and that's why there was the Labour vote was as high as it was, because it came out. Somebody admitted to me on my Facebook profile or something that I voted twice. Some student, because they're registered at home with mum and dad, and they're also registered at uni or whatever.
Yeah, at the halls of residence or wherever they happen to live at uni.
What's the Electoral Commission done about that? It all went quiet, didn't it? It all went quiet.
Do you know what? Absolutely spot on. But who the hell? You look at the administration. How can you have such a fundamental mistake? There's no communication between boroughs or whoever's councils, whoever responsible for having a principal place of dominance. Information sharing. You would have thought that some bright spark. We got a DNA database. Our DNA is unique to us. It should be beyond the realms of fantasy that once you have an address for the purposes of just the electoral system, there's a simple program or a complex program that ensures that you don't get two bloody ballots in separate addresses.
Just for us people that have voted the right way, I want to introduce some sort of self-deprivation here. We were naive to believe that, as we've always been brought up to believe, that our vote counted for something, and when we said no, they would listen. I think we're more than naive if we don't realise that they're capable of rigging the result to suit their ends. I mean, they realise because now it's in the public domain, they can't. We voted to leave, and that's that. But now they're trying to wriggle out of it, and they are using every means at their disposal to turn it over, aren't they? Quite simply.
It's a phenomenon around the Western world as well, isn't it? I mean, look at what happened in Florida last. What was it? The Senate election, and that woman was just blatantly rigging the vote in some county in Florida, and it's not just the UK, but the fact is that we know it goes on, and this is so dangerous. We're running out of time. Go on, Roger, please.
I was going to say, coming back to the most obvious vote rig is bloody Burkow allowing Unga, whatever she's called, with a Peckham Rolex, and she was the casting vote. It's not as though there was a majority of 5, so you could discount her. There she is. She's on parole.
That's right.
Prisoners aren't allowed to vote.
Yeah.
She's on probation rather. She's still serving a sentence, and Burkow goes, "Yeah, I'll let that one pass," and he's gone unchallenged. I mean, it's astonishing. Did I ask?
And how many?
If I may, that
was it. Just
sorry, if I may, that brings me neatly to the point I wanted to raise
Colin, hold that thought, because just as a very brief aside there, because that Cooper bill, it seems to me, was so important, and it has been a bit of a turning point in these whole proceedings. That was the Chuck-Up Party already formed by then. Anna Soubry and all that lot, had they left the whip, the Tory and the Labour whips, to form the Chuck-Up? I think they had. Now,
I think they had.
They didn't go back to their constituencies to get a mandate to allow them. They disobeyed they all did. So many of them did anyway, disobeyed their manifesto pledges. But in their case, they even left the whip, form a new party, and then they go through. On that basis. What a deceit on democracy that is. No, it beggars belief. Sorry.
On that one,
Colin,
I had a look into the rules under which an MP must behave, and there's probably 3. But apart from these 3, everything else goes. They can get away with absolutely anything because there's no rules against them doing whatever they please in there. It's disgusting. There's no rule, for example, in crossing the house, as they call it. There's nothing to prevent you doing that if your conscience allows you to do it. The one thing they must have is integrity, and I think if they absolutely lied to us all. Now, my interpretation of integrity is honesty is part of integrity.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if we've got any recourse in law to get them sorted out. But again, if I just quickly, it's just a quick one, going back to Burko, and the point I phoned in was, what's beginning to worry me more and more and more, if you look at these MPs, for example, Burko, Blair, to a certain extent, who's the Chin? What's his name? Come from Huntingdon. What was his bloody name? Major. Yeah, and et al. When they came along, they were more or less Eurosceptic. Now, something seems to happen when they get into the Privy Council. So I'm beginning to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 5. Is this whole remain in the EU thing even higher than government in this country?
Well, it's the EU itself, because first of all, the EU has made what's he called? Who's the Belgian bloke?
Verhofstadt.
Verhofstadt, exactly. He's made no bones about the crisis that we face is because we're not volunteering more of our sovereign powers.
Yeah.
It's the EU empire. I mean, he's like a poor man's version of Darth Vader. I mean, I wish
my broader point is this. I mean, that's one thing. That's the evil. The evil of the empire, the influence of the empire. But when they are just Burko, when he first got into the Commons, I remember him sitting on the balcony outside and making this big statement about how he was, hates the EU and he's going to do everything in his power to get us out. In his first opportunity, bang, takes the Privy Seal or takes Privy Council, and almost overnight he's changed his mind.
I didn't know that.
So, and if you look at Blair was still anti. He went in on a ticket. 2 things that got him elected really was his stance for proportional representation, which turned out to be a complete wishy-washy, and he was anti-EU.
Yeah, that's
Boom,
right.
get in there, get into the Privy Council, virtually overnight changes his mind. So, and you can look down the ages at them all, as we just said, pale-faced, him. He should have been one of the greatest statesmen this country ever delivered because he came up the hard route.
Yeah, John Major. Yeah.
Privy Council, bang, completely changes his attitude to everything. And I'm just beginning to wonder if it's even higher than government, this influence. Forget the EU, they're doing what they think they need to do to survive. In fact, what they're actually doing is signing their own death warrant because we're not going to stand for it. We're not. Greece or Italy or Spain. We are United Kingdom.
Well, I would say, Colin, it's pretty clear that we've got a shadow government, and the shadow government are corporates. We've never not lived under fascism, is the reality. No, there's always been, some sort of collusion between people with money and people with the power to dictate policy, to change policy. There's always been that kind of collusion, I agree with that, to some extent or other.
The other thing
now,
it seems to be getting worse. Debacle now with British Steel. I was just looking on the internet confirming before I said in 2005, the ECB bailed out. We haven't gone that route, but the ECB bailed out Volkswagen, not for the first time in its history.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that was the Germans using a get round clause to bail out one of their key industries.
And that's against EU policy, no? I think
absolutely,
as well.
But
sorry.
Hang on a sec. If my understanding is correct, the ECB is a bit of a cheat card. It's the joker in the pack, in that it's not a bailout in the sense that a debt has been created. It's a commercial transaction for the greater good of the EU. Example, if the government instructed the Bank of England to lend money to British Steel, that wouldn't actually infringe, effectively, it would be a soft subsidy that would then be written off. But that's how the Germans, in actual fact, used the ECB to crush other economies like the Greeks.
Yeah.
Which was the country, was it Italy, that had undershot or overspent, I don't know, one of the deficits narrowed or got bigger. And what do? The Germans insist on fining them. It's like, well, if you haven't got the money to pay, why the hell hit them with a fine? It's
the jackboot mentality, isn't it? Once you're under the boot, they need to press you down so that you never get up. It's exactly what they've done with the shenanigans with the carbon credit purchasing,
which has crucified British Steel. That's the reason it's gone under.
And it's jackboot, isn't it? It's the jackboot mentality. They want to suppress.
It's the bully, which is inherent in the German psyche. And it is simple. I mean, if you give a German soldier a machine gun and say, go and shoot that bloke over there, he's going to say, no, I don't want the responsibility. If you give 10 German soldiers machine guns and say, go and shoot 1 million people, it's combined, they'll do it. They have absolutely no soul.
This show does not take this editorial line. Yeah, this is an opinion from my guest.
Which I wholly own. It is solely mine.
I distance myself from those comments, I have to say.
I do wonder. I personally think that old Jerry has been... it's just been used. It's a bit like everybody that voted for Blair. I mean, he's another one. He's been one of the biggest genocidal bloody maniacs since Hitler. And what was it, 1 million dead as a result of him? My point, because this is an interesting point. My point there, Rod, is the Germans. I think that they basically were brainwashed. I mean, they look at the Hitler Youth. These libtards today, they remind me of the Hitler Youth. They're similarly, marching in. With a blue and yellow star flag and all that. I mean, they might as well be carrying a swastika.
You could actually say that to the majority of people under 40 in this country. They've actually listened to and bought into the propaganda of the EU. I mean, a friend that I'm
because they get cheap rail cards. I mean, they get a month's free interrailing around Europe. Oh, it's got to be worth it, hasn't it? Oh, blimey!
And they walk around pointing at these signs that say "funded for you by the EU."
Yeah. Funded by the British, the Dutch,
that we paid it
stolen, no choice. You get these signs all over the place. Yeah. Oh, an EU project. No, it's not. It's your money that's been robbed from Peter to pay Paul. Classic socialism. Sorry,
we've had this on your show before. If you look at the league tables of winners and losers in the EU, we are at the bottom of the list. For every pound that we pay into the EU, we get 36p back equivalent. So we leave 2/3 of our cash over there, and what we do get back, they're allowed to say funded by the EU, opposed to exactly.
Top money.
However, the Romanians.
Hold on a sec. Go on.
Every pound that they put into the EU, they get 6 back.
Yeah. There's my wallet. Yeah. Tusk. Juncker, actually, it's empty. Yeah, apart from bills, it's empty. But you're welcome to it. There's my wallet. It's open. Have it. You might as well. That's what you're doing.
Well, if we don't get out of this mess, that's how it's going to be, chaps, isn't it? No representation without taxation, is it?
It's like that already. I mean, here in Spain, the MEPs, they're all campaigning for a better Europe. Like, this is what has the EU got to do with Europe? Europe is a cultural area. Culture. It's not politics, it's culture. The European Union is a political construct. They love conflating that. But there isn't a single Eurosceptic party. There's no MEPs worth voting for in the entirety of Spain. But at least they're looking after their own people, because the Spanish have put in, a few dozen billion into the EU. That's it. About 25 billion or something. Just a sec, Colin. Gets me. Colin, whoa. What's it? They're putting about, 25 billion, something like that. The UK, what do we put in? Half a trillion. This is theft. It is theft. They call it, it's wealth transferal to the benefit of everybody. And then you can fly to Spain and you can sit on the beach and it's awfully lovely. No bollocks! You know what? My mum's 86. I wonder if when she needs, God bless her, a hospital bed, I wonder if she's even going to get one.
Yeah, the one that really gets me with them all is this. It's falling around their ears. They all see it and they cannot see that it's their fault that it's happening. Now, I just want to know what sort of human being who's pointing at people who just want to be able to run their own affairs and saying you're an extremist and a nationalist. But it's happening all over Europe. Instead of them saying, look, I think what we need to do to save this project is make some radical changes, make it so that it's more user-friendly. But instead, like you just said, Verhofstadt, what we need is more Europe. What we need is less sovereignty. And what they're doing there is they're just putting the gun against the head of the likes of Le Pen and saying, call my bluff. And what they're not realising is that the whole of the European countries are beginning to call their bluff, and they still can't see it.
Well, it's funny enough. A person I'd love to see on this show is Yanis. What's he called again? Yanis
Varoufakis.
Sorry?
Varoufakis.
I mean, he's some lad. He's a socialist. Not my natural style of politician, but actually he has a phenomenal intellect. And his view is, socialism, which is preached within the EU, it's all about the people, the spread of wealth, the transfer of jobs from rich places to poorer places, equality across Europe, which, of course, for the poorer countries that have a lot of votes and capital projects, etc., it's manna from heaven. And here you've got this socialist, where socialist policies have brought the country down to the ground, courtesy of being lent all this money through the ECB, which is controlled by the Germans.
Yeah.
We'll lend you the money so you can run up a debt. I hate to say it's a bit like internet gaming. We'll give you the first 500 quid, and when you've got a taste for playing gin rummy or whatever your game is, we'll give you more credit, and then guess what? We want it back. It's like, but hang on, why did you lend me all this money in the first place when you knew I couldn't repay the first 500 quid you gave me? It's like, well, that's your problem, sunshine. Now we want to control your treasury.
Exactly. Yeah. Or in our case, your fishing grounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll take a mortgage on the Acropolis.
Yeah. I mean, that was the biggest robbery of all. I've always said that history will show that Thatcher, I think, on balance, did slightly more harm than good for the country. And one of the most dastardly things she did was to come back from that meeting in 83, where she'd given away the fishing rights for a bigger rebate. I thought the fishing rights were actually sold, and those fishing for a rebate, for the rebate, so that she could get elected for the second term at that time.
The rebate, which we have subsequently lost. Carry on, Rod. What was your?
I may be very wrong. It was probably a bloke I was chatting to in a boozer. A battleship, who was telling me that in actual fact, various families had licenses that they sold. So they actually sold their sort of family businesses to the Spanish. So it wasn't quite like we've just given our fishing rights away. It was the license system that we used to have, and it was volunteered by a number of the bigger fishing families. Now, that could be utter nonsense, but that's what I was told by a bloke, funny enough, in a battleship in a poor fishing town, I think the Isle of Arran.
Well, I can tell you that with the average fisherman and fishing family, because it is boats are passed down the family. That's the way the fishing industry has worked for centuries, and they were bribed. They were bribed. But they were told that you have to. Basically, you're not allowed to fish anymore anyway, or your quota is so small, and you got to throw everything back and all that. That it's not worth it. But we'll bribe you. We'll give you some money, but you have to dispose of your boat. And fishermen around the country, around the British Isles, fishermen were beaching their boats and setting them on fire and burning their boats and their family ancestry. I tell you, it's enough to make you cry. It's
like you got your farmers now moaning like buggers about the loss of subsidies when they all bought into setting aside back in the day, which caused the shortage of our own produce, and then the butter and the milk, mountain and the milk lakes. Remember that? Yeah. So they were all bribed with great big money, and now we need them to step up to the plate again because we need them to, step up production. They're all moaning like bastards about it, aren't they? Now,
well, having to do some hard work for a change.
And it's any work for a change.
And it's not just that. It's the follow on, the follow on effect, because all the service industries go down. You go to a place like Great Yarmouth now, and it's depressing. Yeah, it's a depressing place to go to. It really is. It's horrid. You're more likely to see a needle than you are a fishing boat. I mean,
my sins. For my sins, I had a job selling RAC membership, and the highlight of the whole year was the trip to Yarmouth during mid-season, because you could make your money for a whole year back in the late 80s. And but you go there now, and you're lucky to see 2 or 3 people walking down the promenade, aren't you? I know it, but it's a slow erosion, isn't it? They've done it slowly, catchy monkey. And what you can't convince these people under 40 is that that's the plan and that's the direction, but they just won't see it. They just do not want to know, because they've all been indoctrinated by the system here. The establishment here is telling them what the Europeans want them to hear. It's ridiculous.
Well, I think it's not just the Europeans. I think we're too soft, bluntly, in respect of education. I think family values having broken down.
That's right.
Over the last 50 years. That's right. Education starts at home. Respect. I mean, respect for veterans.
Has that not been encouraged?
The veteran who had the milkshakes
today.
That's awful.
Can you imagine that at the turn of the century?
Dreadful.
An old soldier with his medals or his regimental cap being attacked by a youngster. I mean, the youngster would be bloody lynched.
That's right.
Well, I used to say this back in about 25 years ago.
Terrible.
And I used to get heavily berated for this. I used to say, what we've got now is we've got a generation of children who have given birth to children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because they were only children when they became parents, they had no idea about parenting. So now, 40 years on from that, we are, as you quite rightly say, Rodri, paying the price for that. Could you imagine conscription if any of these, back in when we were young, if somebody said, come on, you've got to go and fight for this, show me the gun. Can you imagine what this mob would say now?
Oh,
seriously.
They'll probably ask if you get, I don't know, what benefits do you get, and does it come with a smartphone or something? I don't
know. Funny enough, I put together a project with some old lads from Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. As a youngster, one of my schools had a CCF, Combined Cadet Force. So at an early age, it taught me a bit of discipline. We were forced to do it. Now, in the UK, I can't remember how many schools there are, secondary schools, but it's several thousand. and my guess, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, and I'm not fact checking here. I think 24,000 schools across the UK, something of that order.
Yeah, it's going to be there. Yeah.
There's less than 300 schools that provide a CCF, and our view was okay. And I've got the project plans. I mean, I'm very happy to sort of publish them. We thought for veterans who would still they would still be under Queen's regulation. You provide a job and a home for a veteran. You provide in inner cities, in particular, you provide a father figure for a child who doesn't have a father figure. They then have adventure opportunities like, I don't know, parachuting or canoeing or things that you would never do if you were brought up on the marshes of Hackney. And whilst we got a very general positive feedback, the academics, the school governors, they looked at the fine detail and they said, well, we're not sure that we could spare a janitor to have a salt and provide the accommodation.
Doesn't suit the leftist agenda, does it? Back in the day, you'll remember, and Ollie will, and I will, that all of the what we used to call school caretakers were ex-squaddies.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
You could go to them and
you didn't mess with them
awkward questions, and they would give you good answers.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely,
that's right. And if either that or a clip round the ear.
Well, yeah, if you deserved it, absolutely.
Aye.
But the other problem with the youth of today, and this is a great one, is that
we do sound like a bunch of old farts. This is the old fart show, yeah. This is turning the old fart show. But carry on, Colin, because you're absolutely spot on, mate.
This society now is more attuned to its what its rights are than its responsibilities.
Yeah.
And that's where the fork in the road started to happen about 40 years ago. You know, the education started to adopt a rightist mentality. Leftist mentality.
What fuels that is the welfare state.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you're coming back to your earlier example of children being parents, they could afford to be parents and children because someone else is paying for it. If you actually put them back in their own parents' home, their parents, the grandparents, had to pay for upbringing and what have you, as opposed to general taxpayer, you'd have a different culture of education at an early stage.
Yeah. My mum, bless her, dead now for a long, long time, had three jobs to keep us. Knew her responsibilities far more than she did her rights, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And it's gone absolutely 180 degrees the other way now. And it's still the same. You see it, don't you? It's all around you. And then it's encouraged by this, what do they call that nonsense television now? They've just taken Jerry Kyle off. What's that genre called?
Reality TV or...
Reality TV. It's actually... It's feeding into that, isn't it?
It is.
At every level, it's feeding into that mentality.
Yeah.
It's big. Yeah.
Gentlemen, you know what? I'm gonna have to wrap this show. This is really, really fascinating. But if I don't, it's going to be divorcio.
We'll be all night
for me. And but I want to leave you on a high note. Actually, before I've got one last question for you guys, which is, what will come first, Brexit or EU implosion? And I refer partly to the remake-up of the EU Parliament come Monday.
Roger, you first, and then I'll go.
No, go on, Colin.
I think Brexit will come before, which in actual fact will then inspire and encourage Italy, Greece, Holland. We are the hamster, and when we demonstrate that in actual fact our economy hasn't collapsed, we don't have 90% unemployment, etc. And I think the thing that the EU-crats are most terrified of is in actual fact a phalanx of Brexit, the French, etc. You get Le Pen together with Farage, and I can't pronounce the Italian fella's name, but who's on track, and they could effectively paralyse, even though they're only MEPs. But don't forget, they get to vote for the president. And if there are sufficient numbers of them, and they get in, they get the Hungarians on board, and it spreads like a sort of bacterial, disease, the EU would then, I think, it was guaranteed implosion, but Brexit comes first.
Well, that is basically Farage's raison d'etre, isn't it? Really, that's what he wants to do. It's destroy it from the inside. Everybody's tried to get to it from the outside, but it's not happening. So you need to get onto the inside. But I hope and I pray that you're right on this, but I see it slightly differently. I think that the stitch up is going to accelerate. Once Sunday comes and goes, when we get to Monday morning, I think the establishment stitch up is going to have to go into overdrive. You've already got the likes of Grieve saying that there's no way on the planet he's going to stand by and let there be a no-deal Brexit. I think the
his constituents
have already
may have
realised that
something to
they're
say.
done with. There's no way
Colin?
back from at the moment.
What was that after Grieve? What did you say after Grieve? Sorry, Grieve's constituents might have something to say about that. But carry on. What did you say after?
Well, then the Conservatives have, I think, realised that they've shot themselves in the foot now, and they don't seem to be doing anything at all to recover the position, which directs me back to the mentality in Europe. They're all scuttling around saying it will just go away. It will just go away. What they haven't, they are tarring us with the same brush as the Greeks, the Italians. The difference is we've got a strong economy. They can't. They are trying to crush our youth, like you said, the Hitlerjugend, younger, and develop it that way. And they've almost succeeded. We've got this opportunity now, if we take it with both hands, to stop that happening. And I would say that it's going to be Brexit before the implosion, but I don't see Brexit happening for a bloody long time yet. We've got we're on the battlefield. We're just loading the weapons. We're getting prepared. I think it's a long battle.
Do you know what? I'd just like to add to that. For the Conservatives, actually, May is out. I mean, there are no two ways about that. The only way for the Conservatives to have any future whatsoever is to appoint a Leaver as the next Prime Minister. Because if a general election was called, I mean, I think there'd be two Conservatives in the House. Therefore, they've got to affect Brexit and take on board what the people are shouting at them. Without which, they're not going to have their cosy expenses and their seats without having to work too hard.
I think all three of us can see that. But what you've got is they've adopted this bunker mentality, haven't they? They don't believe that that's going to happen. Yeah. So, and even when they are shown on Monday that it is happening, they're still going to, what they'll do then is, I said earlier, they'll start to close ranks and make the stitch up permanent. And that's what I fear.
I want to just leave on a, you got a quick point, Rodri. Got a quick point there, sir.
Actually, no. I'm rather looking forward to my jail ale followed by a foggle.
Jail ale followed by a foggle, and we're not being rude. These are brands.
There was a phrase you recovered from very quickly. Which you go back to.
It is definitely beer o'clock. I want to close. I want to close the show on a positive note. Yeah. Macroni wants the UK to leave by October to stop Brexit polluting the EU. According to Breitbart's top story this evening, President Emmanuel Macron of France has said that he wants the UK out of the EU by October the 31st to stop Brussels' agenda being polluted by Brexit. Now, this is why, one of the reasons why it was important to vote today, to be pissing inside the tent. No, I'm sorry. Speaking to a Belgian newspaper. Hold on, Colin. Whoa. I've got to go. Wrap this and go. Speaking to Belgian newspaper Le Soir on Wednesday, President Macron appeared to share some of the frustration of Britons that the exit date should have been delayed twice, saying in the case of Brexit, you just have to know at some point whether it stops or not. If we follow the logic of saying that it scares us and that we are prepared not to respect the British vote, we betray both the British and the interests of the British, he added, touching upon a rare sentiment of respect amongst the European elite for the vote to leave. He is a duplicitous little shit. Quite clearly, there's no question about that whatsoever. Nonetheless, They are worried. They are worried about the makeup come Monday of the EU Parliament. I'll tell you what. Woo! Let's give them hell. Give them hell. Oh, come on. Oh, what's going on? Bloody machine. Bloody machine. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, dear. Oh, no. Now I've really cocked it up. Right, okay. Can't get the timing right with a machine full of, I don't know. Box of frogs. Oh, I never called her. Oh, blimey. Hold on. Oh, no, hold on a sec. Hold on. I forgot to call her. What's her name? That woman. I'll call her next. I'll call her next week. I've got an interesting telephone number. I'm going to make an interesting phone call, but it's not going to be tonight because otherwise I'm going to be living on the streets. I want to say a big chat. Big thank you to Viscount St David's. God bless you, Rodri. Thank you, sir, Rodri Phillips. And Colin Duff, thanks for calling in, mate, because nobody else bothers. And everybody in the comments.
Somebody's got to do it, fella.
Oh, yeah. We've got to keep talking, people.
Night, guys.
Has anyone got a decent Nicky Lauder joke?
Yeah, do you remember the...
Here we go.
Sorry, say that again? Louder.
Does anyone have a good Nicky Lauder joke?
Oh,
louder. Say it louder.
Yeah, say it louder. Say it louder.
Say it louder.
Well, I was said one which is terrible. William Hill are offering 4-1 odds that Nicky Lauder survives his cremation.
Oh no!
You don't like them Germans, do you, mate?
You're gonna get me banned. Oh. Right, this has been Daily Brexit. It's been a wonderful week, isn't it? I'm having a night off tomorrow. It's not, but it's been an amazingly interesting week. I will be here on Monday. Not before then because there's nothing to do really. I mean, apart from have a bit of a laugh and all that. But in terms of this Brexit thing, we are treading water. If I don't know if there's some sort of Theresa May comedy going on, maybe I'll do something. I don't know, but probably not. Which means Monday. Yeah, Monday. Bank holiday Monday. Yes, fine. See you there. 7:00. Results analysis. Robin Horsley's going to be here, but maybe Cassie Crowhurst is going to be popping in too. She's definitely going to be in next week. I know that. Just to annoy that, I don't know, that troll last week or whatever. Anyway, right, that's it. God bless you. Here's to us a bugger. Plutocracy. All right, okay. Aye, God, I tell you what, Macron, you can have it, mate. You can have it. You can keep it. We would have won out, you bloody bugger. Yeah.